It's time to check in with Microsoft's floundering live service that is Halo Infinite. And that's actually not something that brings me joy to say because I love Halo. I've loved it for the majority of my time on this planet. But we do have to deal with what's happening, so there's a number of key developments today. We have a new studio heavily joining the project, with a big rumor, and a few other interesting things about that studio. We've also got updated numbers. We've got an update to the Master Chief Collection, and, of course, what's actually happening with Halo Infinite. So a hell of a lot to get into as we work out just why the hell this is all going on. So, if we were to cover numbers, here's the thing that's been catching people's attention, right? Halo Infinite, 30-day average, 5,382 players. Halo Master Chief Collection, 30-day average, 3,600. Up 9, I mean, just look at that percentage gain. In 30 days, up 900 players, 33%, so you can see that's going up. And if you look at the current players, though, this is just at the time of me doing this screenshot. We have Master Chief Collection, just under 5,000 concurrents. We've got Infinite at just over 2,500.
Yep.
So that does not look good for Infinite, and it's very easy to say, game had an explosive launch, now it's settled to a reasonable number, oh my god, 90% of people have left, doom and gloom. Very easy to do that, not always super truthful, but this is certainly a case where I think Halo Infinite is absolutely underperforming. This is not what you would expect from the big Steam release of Halo. Of course, we have no idea how many people are playing this as a part of Game Pass, using Xbox on their PC, and no doubt a lot of people are still playing this game on console, but evidently we do have some issues, and we can at least see this as a indicator of how Halo Infinite is doing, and of course Master Chief Collection, on what I would almost call the non-traditional Halo audience.
Yeah, so even on the point of Xbox performance, whenever we looked at it the last time we were talking about Halo Infinite, it was down around the same level as Call of Duty Vanguard, which was substantially below other games like Dead by Daylight, that you wouldn't expect to be, obviously they have a huge following, but you wouldn't expect it to be as large as a Halo. But clearly Halo Infinite is not performing as well as they would like on the Xbox platform. And I don't know if that's just console. I think that also takes the Game Pass and PC stuff into account because it's based on Xbox Live account player base. So I think it is definitely way underperforming. And you're saying obviously the current players, Master Chief Collection's higher, but that 24-hour peak is 9.5k for Master Chief Collection, 8.2k for Halo Infinite, which means at least yesterday, MCC had more people playing. And I think that goes to show the kind of thing of, this even happens with, people laughing about Babylon's Fall, dropping below 10 players on Steam. It's like old games that didn't try to have longevity have more longevity than games that try for longevity. Yeah. Just because they're better in a way.
And what we've essentially seen with Halo Infinite, which sucks because this is a game that I wanted to do well and be top dog in the market, it's, essentially was experiencing around 50% player drop-off on a monthly basis. December, 50% down. January, 54.9%. 50% February, 45.8% March, and a 15% in the last 30 days. So that is awful numbers. The player base essentially, not the player base, but the average players halving on a monthly basis. And if we think about why, well, there's not been new content. Numerous aspects of progression and customization, which we'll talk about in a little bit, have very much been lackluster. And then if you look at Master Chief Collection, what you basically see is that it also, has been experiencing some natural losses. I think some of that you would expect because it would rise up a little bit whenever Halo is doing super big because of Infinite. But we seemingly, after a dip in March, are seeing the average players begin to increase. Now, you could perhaps say that one of the reasons for that is this. There's a new update to the Master Chief Collection for April 2022. As a sort of thing where I don't want to sit here and just go into massive detail, because I know not everyone watching, a lot of you are interested in the comings and goings, not necessarily all of the details, but just to quickly go through, we've got ODST, firefight improvements, and flood fight, with flood fight being basically a new game variant for firefight, which is their, I guess, kind of like, PV, or team PvE sort of horde-ish mode, custom game browser improvements, some cross-platform co-op for Halo 3 and ODST, campaign customization for Halo 4, new skulls for Halo 2, 3, and ODST, some new medals, mod tools, things like that. So not the biggest release ever, but I think basically the thing with Master Chief Collection is it has a stupid amount of excellent quality content. It is fucked up how good of a deal Master Chief Collection is. It is one of those things I could wholeheartedly recommend that to anyone. It is worth the money. So, no wonder that it's sitting there as just a good, healthy product. And it's great to see 343 actually put some love into it. Perhaps these numbers are making them realize, oh yeah, the legacy of this franchise can also perform really well. We need to keep that solid too.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing that we see with like remasters happening so much. Or like the old game was good. Why not just update that and let people play it instead of making a new game that might also be good but has less in it?
Yeah, and to be fair to Microsoft Studios, they they're just talking about the new expansion for Age of Empires. Not Age of Empires 4, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition.
Yeah.
And that is just a beautiful thing to see. Now, this is all feeling a bit doom and gloom. I love Halo. I don't want to see news stories where Halo is, struggling or not doing super well. So there could potentially be some hope. And there's so many games, well, No Man's Sky obviously is the big one, which, funny enough, recently did have a very cool-looking Outlaw update. But there's games that can actually claw it back. And I think that Halo Infinite has the one thing that's most important when it comes to clawing back an audience, and that is that Halo Infinite's a beautiful game. It plays incredibly.
Yeah.
So that's why I was very happy to hear that they are getting development assistance from Certain Affinity. Right? They tweeted, "We've been part of the Halo franchise for more than 15 years, and we're honored to say we're deepening our relationship with 343 and have been entrusted with further evolving Halo Infinite in some new and exciting ways. Join us on our journey." So they're flying in with the assist. But it's worth covering a little bit of what they could be doing, some of the scuttlebutt. So if you don't know who Certain Affinity are, which would be fair enough, they aren't really a lead studio on things, but there's a decent chance you've played some of their content. So they did mapping on Halo 2 and Reach, co-development with 343 on Halo 4 and Halo Infinite, co-development on Doom 2016's multiplayer with id, co-development on the COD 4 remaster. They've done mapping in the COD franchise, generally just numerous other projects, lots of shootery stuff. So they are franchise veterans of Halo. They have quite a lot of shooter experience when it comes to map creation, which I think is something that would bode very well and would absolutely counter one of the concerns that Infinite players have had, which is basically, we would like more maps, please. Halo Infinite did not launch with a humongous amount of maps and modes for its core arena mode. That's obviously an issue. And a random little tidbit I found too. Leyu, where they're the Warframe developers' parent company.
Yeah, owned by Tencent, yeah.
Yeah, so they own 10% of Certain Affinity. They invested $10 million in the company for new IP in 2017.
New IP, interesting.
So, no idea where that's going to go. But one thing we can be sure of is that they have quite a few things going on. So here's Jez Corden, another sort of industry insider type, commenting on Jeff Grubb and other industry insiders' comments about them making a Monster Hunter-like game for Xbox. He says it's codenamed Project Suerte, and we could see it 2023 to 2024. It's kind of interesting. And then Certain Affinity actually recently tweeted saying, "We're Certain Affinity." They talk about their location, saying that they're working on many of your favorite games and our own original IP. So perhaps that's the Leyu project or this new Monster Hunter-like thing for Microsoft, because apparently, basically the talk of the town was like Microsoft couldn't afford to do a Monster Hunter on Game Pass.
Yeah, because that would cost them, Capcom would ask for probably hundreds of millions, but yeah.
So they're saying that they're working Halo Infinite and our other secret projects.
Well, given the timing of that Leyu 2017, because I can't remember the exact year, but 2017 was around the time that World launched. I think it was 2016, maybe 2017. And everyone was like, Monster Hunter has legs in the West. Oh shit, get in on that. So I can completely see that happening around that time with Leyu. I can't remember if they were owned by Tencent at the time. I can't remember, but that was around that time. They're like, yeah, just give us loads of IP, and lots of people are looking at Monster Hunter specifically, going, why do we not make this?
Yeah,
so that's good.
Exactly.
That's cool, honestly.
So when we go back to Halo, now I will say the one thing that I think they really need to get a whole bunch of is maps. You get more maps, fix up the progression system, do all of that. But Tom Henderson quote tweeted saying, "Where are we dropping, boys?" If you're not aware, that's very much, that is what you say to the boys whenever you are about to hop out of a plane in a battle royale game. And to show my age, I would be going into, what was it? The crazy place in the big deserty map in PUBG, because that's the last battle royale I ever played. Now,
Yep.
the idea of a BR in Halo Infinite is a bit of a funny thing. And I think if you said this to me before it came out, I would have kind of thought, I don't know. I mean, I like Battlefield, and I saw that Firestorm didn't do that Battlefield game much good. I don't know if I want this. But to be honest, after playing the Halo Infinite single player and seeing how good Halo feels in a large... I mean, it's always felt good in a large play space. It's been its thing, but extending that further...
Yeah, well...
I could actually see this being really fun.
Yeah, so outside of some of like the obviously major bugs that people have, I don't even know if they're bugs, but physics interactions that people have been abusing to get around, you can very much see that Halo, with all of the like legacy vehicles and the legendary vehicles that people all know and love, as well as the grapple hook, does just mean that traversal is going to own. And obviously, looking at like certain affinities background, you can see they definitely have like a mapping experience, and they could very well design a good like Halo experience. But even like if that's guided by the whoever was working on designing Halo Infinite, that multiplayer just is really, really good. So you could see that translating fairly handy, I guess.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And when you think about Battle Royale, what is that? Well, that's generally recurrent players.
Yeah.
And when it goes well, people keep on coming back. That would absolutely help to give this a bit more of a robust offering. Perhaps keep those concurrents where Microsoft would want them to be.
Indeed.
So it's all quite interesting. Then for the monster stuff, we just have there's been so many reports about wanting experienced Xbox devs following up the Monster Hunter exclusive reports. Don't really need to go into that massively, but it's just a little bit of sort of color on it from Jeff Grubb. Now, as we go back to Halo then, so the good news is they are getting some assistance. As we go back, this was one of the top comments that I saw, and it really makes me think about me playing Halo when I was younger versus playing Halo now. So when I was younger, you'd want to do the stuff to get the cool gear. Obviously through the likes of RB and Chief, the Recon armor was the one that everyone knew about and kind of wanted to earn. So that was a very cool thing. And it was fine. You could earn that gear in some of the later games after Halo 3. The customization, it got better. You can choose different bits, primary, secondary, tertiary colors for your gear. And this comment's just perfect. The Master Chief Collection has community-made content. Infinite doesn't even have content. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You want to go play Fat Kid, which... so Fat Kid was a custom game mode where you got somebody with a grav hammer, and they would go really slowly. And you basically set up an obstacle course for the other players, where you have to use melee and weird physics interactions to make your way through the obstacle course, all while this motherfucker with a grav hammer is slowly lumbering towards you. That's just one example.
Yeah.
There was many others. Me and my friends, we would make custom infected maps.
Yeah,
for like zombie gameplay.
That's one of those game modes that I feel like is completely lost to time, because people are like, all the designers are trying to get this like super hyper juiced one single gameplay mode. There's like, we need everyone, because we don't want the playlist spread of like, we've got 1,000 players, but there's only 50 per playlist. We got to get everyone into the same game mode. We can design it perfectly, design the progression. And it's like, you lose the days of, what if we all play Odd Job in GoldenEye? Or what if we play like Time Splitters 2 or 3 and get the virus and infected modes going, where you're just chasing after each other, like really weird kind of playground made up rules. All that stuff is like very much the soul of multiplayer that existed in the past is largely gone.
You mean
the
fun?
Super focused. That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. The kind of out there fun.
Yeah, and I think that's really awkward for them is this. I can unlock multiple ODST helmets free in Master Chief Collection. I have to pay $7 to $10 for a single ODST helmet in Infinite. Yep. There you go.
Worst game by that metric then.
Yeah, and Master Chief Collection is, of course, free in Game Pass.
Yep.
That's the thing. to most of the people, they would have paid box price for Halo Infinite multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's a free-to-play, but it's like they have Game Pass anyway.
Yeah.
So, there's aspects of that freemium model that just don't really feel that good to people.
Yeah.
Dear. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Also, the Thomas the Tank mods, which Infinite does not have, so dead game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing when you think about, like, how do people view games? How do people think about games internally? And if you just go, well, Infinite, no content, and the story across the industry is Infinite has no content, I guess I'll not play it. But then Master Chief Collection, like, I can do whatever I want here. It's like the better thing in people's heads to go play, because there's so much more in it. Like,
Yeah. Now, there are good things coming for Halo Infinite. So, Season 2, bringing 2 maps, Breaker for Big Team Battle, Catalyst for the Arena modes. I think maybe, especially considering the map quantity at the start, maybe people would have wanted more there. There's a Last Standing Free-for-All mode, King of the Hill mode, and Land Grab, which is a 5-point capture, but you can't recapture.
cool.
So I
Nice.
think that could be pretty cool. And Attrition. Now, unfortunately, the co-op has been delayed, but it will appear during this season. I think the season was already delayed, though,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
awkward. And then split screen, well, 2-player split screen local co-op, that is also a delayed thing. So perhaps delayed a little bit beyond the actual co-op coming out. Forge is still planned for Season 3,
Yeah.
but can we be confident that it will ship? Hard to say, really.
The other thing there is obviously like when they were like, "Hey, Forward Season 3," when they first said that was based on the initial timing of seasons. So now it's like Forward Season 3. There is an inbuilt delay in that because everything's been pushed back by, I want to say 3, maybe 2, maybe 3 months overall. So it's like Forge will be the end of this year, maybe
Yeah.
a year after release.
Now, learning is a decently important thing, and they, I really do think they are doing that, and they are trying their best. I think they've just been left in a situation where they had to do so much work to get this to ship that it meant that they made it across the finish line. But look, think about running a race, and it's like, okay, congratulations, you ran a 5K, then you had to do a 400 meter to ship the game, and now we want you to run a marathon. That's a little bit what it can be like. Now, they did 2 blog posts, and like the TLDRs are long, and then the actual in-depth thing is really long.
Oh, they're great.
Basically, bullet pointing feedback and then the developer response. I think these are fantastic blog posts, great examples of communication from a game developer. So there's one of these on just Season 1 and gameplay. There's another one on sort of it as a live game. And I wanted to highlight some of the live game things because honestly, we see when it comes to gameplay, I trust them. Like, look, I get it. The Commando rifle is a bit underpowered and there's a few things that are a bit funky, but I think the core game is excellent. So what I'd rather talk about a little bit is this. So some player feedback, of course, is the price of the shop can make no sense when you think about the items. People maybe want more purchase options. They want more things to appear in the shop. So even for the people who are wanting to engage in the shop, it's not really a great shop. And suffice to say, they've said they are going to do a better job on, value and options. They are basically looking into items within bundles, increasing the rate of offer refreshes and a few things like that, maybe a second page for the store. Now, also for the battle pass and progression, now that's been a big issue. The player feedback they covered then is people wanting career progression instead of the battle pass, definitely. Award per match XP that takes performance into account, that's big. People wanting the battle pass to contain more value across both of the tracks, some challenges being too situational, some challenges being misconfigured or worded in a way that's a bit confusing, the value of the ultimate rewards varying too much, so really good one week, a bit shit the next week, and the double XP boosts running off time not being great. Absolutely. Yeah. You end up hoarding those XP boosts because you're like, I don't know when the right time to use this is.
Yeah.
Because you kind of want to get all your challenges to a decent amount, then pop the thing, then complete the challenges. But then, what if you have a bad match? What if the match happens to be in a mode that doesn't cover your challenges? It's a bad system. So for this, they've basically said that they're actually in the design phase for career progression. They know there's a desire for per-match performance stuff, for XP, and it's something that actually will land this year. They're working on it.
Great.
People want the battle pass to have more value, and they've said that there's going to be on the premium track 1,000 credits that you get back. So that's also a good thing.
Yeah.
And also that there'll be better weekly ultimate rewards and improved event passes as well, because the event passes were, as much as some of the event gear was cool, the passes were pretty lackluster. Some other things then about challenges being a bit weird or being sort of misconfigured, worded badly. They basically just said they're doing their best on an ongoing basis for that and asking for feedback. An example is they removed Killjoy challenges from all challenge decks so you won't see them again. And then for the Ultimate Rewards, they just provided some examples of what they're going to be in Season 2 for the first few weeks. So just an example of improvements. I don't think there's really enough there. It's the pace of development being a bit slower. I think that per match performance-based XP, that is something I would really, really like to see. And that there's more stuff. As an example, they talk a little bit about their reasonings and the various different pros and cons of using the XP tokens.
Yeah.
I would say generally with those, and they did talk about, initially I think they were planned to be 15, then they made them 30. They're now going to make them longer. So at least the longer they are, then the less those concerns appear. But still, man, it's just that thing. Making it a live service does just make things a bit strange.
Yeah, it's that, like, you put so much emphasis on the progression because that's why you're like trying to frame everyone's playtime, because you kind of have to, like, as a designer, go, well, we need to really hyper juice this so people really want to progress, and then that can lean into people's like enjoyment of the game because they're playing for that, especially when performance doesn't matter. Because that's actually something that's been interesting with playing FF14 PvP recently with a new revamp. It's like you get double the XP and double the rewards for a win. So I go in, I'm like, I'm going to try to win every time. Whereas I know if that was just not performance based, I would just be kind of, it doesn't matter if I win too much.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not, because it's like decent enough rewards, I'm not mad if I lose. But it's that kind of thing of, I do feel like, yeah, I'm going to go in and give this a good shot.
Yeah.
And that's like a really simple version of just, yep, I'm going to go in, I'm going to win, I'm going to get some extra currency, feel good, get my stuff, happy days.
Now, there's some other things that, there's a few other things that they do mention here, and I just to quickly recap, one thing that a lot of us have been angry about or just pissed off about, because it is a regression from what we had in the past, is where, you get an unlock, right? But it'll be limited to a certain armor core.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that is kind of different to how some of these things used to be in the past, where it felt a lot more mix and match and customizable. So they've essentially, and obviously, by the way, it feels like they did that so they could have more, random bits of metal that you could put onto you that they could, use for awards. So I get why they did that for the Battle Pass. I mean, it feels shit, but it's what they did. They've said that they're going to look into loosening those like armor core restrictions as much as they can. But honestly, for me, it's going to feel bad until I can get primary, secondary, and tertiary color selection and, radically, like you could almost say, like, radically liberalized rules and restrictions. Now, the problem is that some of this, they said, goes into, from a technical perspective, how all of these armor sets have actually been built.
Yeah.
So there definitely would be work there. But to be honest with you, I almost see Halo. Now, I don't mean a Halo product in the traditional sense where, like, it's ultra premium, it's like the big sexy car that the car company has, so everybody thinks, whoa, that's a sexy car company. I'm going to buy their lower end model or something like that, or, a Mac Pro, or, stupid money computer that makes people think, oh, the other computers are great, or, a 3090 Ti or something. But Halo is important. And I think with this live service that, what is the long-term cost of damaging the Halo brand by going freemium? That's a lingering question from me. But to finish this off, final little thing, Matt, about this. So something that Jason Schreier highlighted in 2020 about Microsoft having this rule where contractors can only work for 18 months and then they could have a 6-month break, and that this has been disruptive because, a lot of attrition happens. I then actually I was going through some LinkedIn stuff. There's this guy, Brett Gaba, who's an enterprise marketing director. And, one of the things he was saying as a con in his Microsoft experience was the 18-month thing. And it was just kind of interesting going through there. But he even says, my advice is to focus on the contract at hand words are hard. Magnanimously? Magnanimously, there we go, man. For the first year. But after 12 months, it might be a good idea to start putting feelers out and updating your resume. Do you want an employee to be worrying about where they're going next or what they're going to do? Or, maybe they need to switch roles within Microsoft or something to get around the rule? You don't want your people worrying about that job security, because then they're going to think, well, what does this mean for my mortgage? What does this mean for my family? What does this mean for the location where I work? Now, I saw some comment, actually it was Microsoft themselves said that some of this was about tightening up their procedures and security, but I also saw a comment that this was basically in response to issues that were arising around essentially having, near permanent contractors, where these people would be there on a contract, but they wouldn't have all the sort of rights and protections of an employee.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason why contractors are so heavy in games as well. It's like the two things of you need to scale up and scale down, so you can't just have like 500 employees all the time or you run out of money. But the other thing is just, hang on, so we can pay a contractor about the same as an employee, maybe a little bit more, and then we don't have to pay for any of their other shit that they have to do. They don't get to take a whole bunch of time off. They don't get to have any rights. We can just do whatever we want and fire them whenever. That sounds good to me.
Good deal, bro.
So that's ultimately, I think, the kind of the problem, and it's just I don't know how they get around it. Although I do think the security thing's probably important for Microsoft.
True.
To get contractors either in-house so they can completely lock down the security, or get rid of them so they don't, end up being, oh yeah, I know everything about Microsoft, but I'm not tied to them, kind of thing.
Yeah, and for me, it's a very interesting thing because, right, there's a con of live services for developers, and that is the whole, you did a marathon for production, a sprint to ship the game, and now you have to do another marathon to maintain the live service. That's like the con for developers. The pro for developers is that it does mean that them being treated well, having good working conditions, and teams being appropriately staffed is more important than ever in the games industry because of this need to have follow-through. And I wonder if over time this will make some of these companies realize that, as Steve Ballmer of Microsoft said, developers. I'm not going to get as sweaty as Ballmer, so I'll cut the bit off there.
Or as drunk. He was the one, the Ballmer peak. Comes from him, of course, but yeah.
Of course. So basically that's it. That's the update in Halo. Look, I'm going to say this. I'm going to hop back and enjoy some Season 2 of Halo Infinite because I love Halo. I think it's a brilliant game. For me, I jumped in, played it for a decent few weeks. Then I kind of felt like, all right, well, there's some other things to do. There's, Endwalker and stuff. So I'll stop. And they haven't had as many big reasons for me to come back. And I suppose that's the thing. In the past, the market was not as saturated with games. It was easier for a game to just kind of coast on, a weekly updating playlist or something. But now it is just harder. And I think that's something that they've very much been hit with.
Yep, you really have to, that's the thing with all these franchises. You just have to go so hard to beat other people. And if you don't have your production schedule absolutely nailed and your players know, well, if I play this for 2 weeks, it'll be another thing. Because even, as an example, Vampire Survivors is a good example of that. I just know that's going to update every 2 weeks, and I'll play it for an hour every update. And that's just a really neat part that I get ready for. On a Saturday, I'm like, the update's coming today at some point. I can't wait.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the Halo situation. Hope you found this at least decently interesting. I hope they pull this one through because, I think a gaming world that has a healthy, long-term, viable Halo is absolutely a better one. So
Indeed.
That's it from us. We will see you next time.